Hello and welcome to the debate. I'm your host, Sana Maqbool, with you once again at PTV WORLD. In today's show, we will be talking about two very important topics. One, of course, with regards to the local government elections that were held in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, something that we did shed light upon yesterday as well. We know that the ruling party, Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, has also spoken about their defeat in these elections. They've talked about how their strategy was to blame. We also saw Prime Minister Imran Khan tweeting regarding the choice of candidate being responsible for the results of these elections. We explored this a little in detail yesterday as to what went wrong in terms of the decision making with regards to candidate choice in these elections. And then, of course, what sort of change in strategy can we see coming from the PTI government? We'll explore in further detail the impact that these elections and this defeat holds for the ruling party in future elections and in the coming days. We, of course, know the opposition parties are talking a lot about PTI's popularity, and we're going to try and explore that in further detail and see whether or not this puts a question mark to PTI's ruling government and its agenda, and, of course, how it wants to proceed in the future. What sort of changes need to be made from the government side will also be discussed in detail. And then, of course, the kind of challenges that we face specifically with regards to economy, which of course is a matter that is being discussed by the opposition and as well, and which is a matter of concern by the public at large. So that is also something which we will explore further. And then we want to also talk about the situation in Afghanistan. As you know, that the situation in Afghanistan is very important to Pakistan, and recently we had the OIC extraordinary session that was held in Pakistan, and it was hosted and it was commended by people from all over the world in terms of the right step forward in figuring out a way with regards to the situation in Afghanistan. We also know that the former president in Afghanistan, Hamid Karzai, has said that Pakistan should not interfere in Kabul's internal affairs. He has talked about Prime Minister's speech at the OIC session and said that the Prime Minister's speech was meddling in Afghanistan's internal affairs. It was insulting to the Afghan people, and that the threat of the ISK actually emerges from Pakistan is something that Pakistan needs to be taking a deeper look into. We know that the Afghanistan Foreign Minister has spoken about how there was nothing insulting about Prime Minister's remarks, and that there was only positive way forward that was discussed and positive responses that were made at the OSCE summit. How much relevance and significance does the statement hold coming from Hamid Karzai, and what do the people in Afghanistan and specifically the Taliban regime will dig deep into this or not is what we're going to be looking at. For this, of course, we have with us in the studios Mr. Farrukh Pitafi and Mr. Raja Faisal. As always, thank you for joining us once again. And we, of course, have been joined by senior analysts in the show who will be talking to us regarding both of these topics. For the first one, we have been joined by senior journalist Athar Kazmi on Skype. Thank you very much, Mr. Athar, for being with us today. With regards to, of course, the elections that were held and the kind of results that we see, a lot of fingers are pointed at the PTI's success and popularity. A lot of questions are being raised regarding the impact that these elections will hold for future elections for the government. In your opinion, Mr. Athar, does this signify as a real big blow to the PTI's power in the coming days?
First blow, to be honest. If we look at the by-elections in recent days or recent months, PTI has lost almost every single by-elections. They lost in Khanewal, they lost in Karachi, they lost in local government elections in Punjab, cantonment elections, they lost cantonment elections in KPK, in Peshawar. Now they lost these elections. The thing is that now Khan Sahib has taken notice of this, this defeat, and he's saying that he will be micromanaging thing. But if a party is not able enough to choose right candidates for councillors or for Tehsil Nazams or for city mayors, I don't think that party has a right to exist, to be honest. With this speed, I don't see much future for PTI, and their defeat by JUIF, I think is a serious concern for PTI. I don't see PTI coming out of this situation very easily. They have to change the course. They have to change their tactics and the way they are doing politics. obviously is not working. So they need to rethink their strategy.
Right, and what exactly do you think they need to rethink in terms of their actions in the future? We know that the government has been speaking about how they are going to be monitoring the situation closely. The Prime Minister himself is going to do that, and they're going to bring about certain changes in their strategy. But what exactly does that mean in terms of actual actions taken by the PTI government? Will they pay more attention to their choosing of the candidate?
Yeah, there are certain things which obviously they can claim that we have no control over, things like rocketing inflation, global high prices. Okay, that's understandable. But infighting, choosing right candidates, arrogance, sheer arrogance of PTI's leaders from Karachi to Peshawar, they all think they are superstars. The thing is that the PTI at the moment is running on Imran Khan's goodwill, and this goodwill will not last forever. And every single, the leader of PTI, they need to understand that they need to connect with people on ground. We in the past we had people like Aleem Khan and Jahangir Tareen. They were very good in election politics. Jahangir Tareen played a sorry, excuse me, a pivotal role in 2018 elections and after the elections. But since his departure, we have seen the party is weakened in every single province of Pakistan. So they need to rethink, and they need to work hard on the ground, and they need to work with their local workers.
So, do you think that the fundamental problem lies with individuals within the party and not the fundamental structure, perhaps, that may be problematic?
I think there is something wrong with the fundamentally with the structure, to be honest. Because if it was if it was only in Peshawar or only in Karachi or only in Lahore, then we could say that this is something to do with individuals. Then if you see the same result in Lahore, Karachi, Peshawar, then I think it would be fair to say there's fundamentally wrong with the structure of the party, and party is not being run by capable people. So this is something they need to rethink.
Right. Let me, Faisal, before you put a question forward, welcome a political analyst, Mr. Sarwar Pari, who's joined us on telephone line. You can ask your question now.
It's not a question I'm going to ask. I just wanted to differ,
Sure.
obviously, from Athar Kazmi. Athar Kazmi is a very good friend, and last time he was wearing a tie. He's not wearing a tie today. We did discuss tie on the social media. That's why I highlighted. But coming back to the current situation of obviously PTI, the way PTI is moving on. If we look at people like Aleem Khan and Jahangir Tareen, why did they get on a side? Why were they brushed away? The only reason was that Imran Khan, he always had a fundamental stance that anyone who had any cases related to any bit of corruption, obviously he would never allow them people to hang around within the party. So this was the only reason. And I think we all know that Imran Khan, Prime Minister, he always had a stance on accountability, on corruption. So I don't think that he's going to change that stance. If somebody expects that he might turn out one day and would say that, if there are certain people who are involved in certain cases, they will be welcomed back and on the center stage of the party, it would not happen. But if we look at the obviously the current situation of inflation is something which is obviously happening throughout the world, and I think people, especially the party, Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, it needs to go to the grassroots level and tell people why it is taking place.
Sure.
Because they need to know the reasons why it is happening. And I think they have failed so far.
Absolutely.
I'm
Yes,
going
Farrukh.
to wait for my turn, but I just wanted to compliment the MCR, because the picture that they chose of Sarwar Pari Sahab, it seems that he's listening to what you are saying. So that was also quite interesting. Go ahead.
All right, let me also bring in the conversation, Mr. Sarwar Pari. Of course, when we talk about the reasons as to why PTI lost, we see that the statements coming from the party refer to the choice of candidate. But of course, a lot of other issues, as Faisal was talking about, with regards to inflation, with regards to the common people and their perspective and how they're viewing things may be different. Is that something, do you think, that the PTI is even considering?
Well, I think there are four factors which we need to consider while we are analyzing the outcome of local government elections in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. The one is that a large number of seats remained vacant, and also a large number of candidates on reserved seats got elected without any contest. The second thing is that only 40% voters cast their vote. That means that 60% people did not bother to participate in local government elections. And that means that the 60% people are completely alienated from the political processes. The second thing is that, of course, JUIF got large number of seats of chairperson and mayors won, and that is due to two factors. The first is that the JUIF is perhaps the only party in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa who has presence at grassroots level, while other parties, including PTI, does not have offices or chapters of their party at the grassroots level. Similarly, there is the imams of mosques are present almost in every corner of every village or neighborhood. So therefore, they have access, but also they have a lifestyle which is very much voters can relate with. And then, of course, the price hike has played a significant role, but also the PTI has admitted now that they have not fielded right candidates in the local government elections.
So, thank you very much, Mr. Sarwar, for joining with us, and we're going to continue our discussion with our respected guest, Mr. Athar Kazmi. Yes, Faisal, you were saying something?
Yeah, I wanted to ask a question from my friend, Athar Kazmi. Athar, don't you think, in past, obviously, we have been seeing that, question marks were raised on the electoral system of Pakistan. But now, looking at the facts that in KPK elections, obviously local body elections, JUIF, which is considered as, a staunch critique in that context, they, of course, have won now. Would we see them in future complaining about, any question marks on electoral system?
I think they like to pick and choose. I don't see them not picking and choosing in the future. If they win, they'll say it was free and fair election. If they lose again, they'll say the same thing again, or it was managed, it was rigged. So they'll continue to pick and choose. But the thing is that JUIF won in the heart of PTI in Peshawar. So imagine how hard PTI had to work to convince people of Peshawar not to vote for them, but vote for Maulana Saab. So we must give credit to Maulana Saab, but we cannot give clean chit to PTI. It was PTI's own wrongdoings, own bad, election management, which resulted in this historic defeat.
Athar, but
okay,
now
what I'm going to do is
so patient. No. I was just going to say because you have
but
been so patient,
I'm going to do
you
what he has been doing. I'm going to ask myself a question.
No. Let me ask you a question. In fact, when we were earlier speaking to Mr. Sarwar, he pointed out a number of factors.
Yeah.
One of them, of course, was also that a large percentage of the population did not even participate. And of course, from the PTI side, we have their own reasons coming forward. Which one of these do you think is the most important factor in actually whatever happened with regards to PTI's loss?
Right. Will you allow me to comment on Faisal's question as well?
Absolutely. You can comment on my question, comment on Faisal's, and ask a question. How about that?
No, I'm going to ask myself a question because
Sure.
it has been like quite a while since I've been silent. Look, first of all, one should be congratulating the people of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa that they have actually gone for this election. And this marks a very, very important shift in how local governments actually take place or they are formed. One, that the Nazim or the head of the councils or the administration is now being elected directly. That is a humongous achievement. I think in coming days you are going to see that it is going to be play a very important role, right? I keep on saying this because normally whenever you participate in an election, you are voting for people that usually go to other cities and work from there. For example, if you are in Bannu, if you are going to elect an MPA, he is going to go and sit in Peshawar, not in your constituency. So the only government that is on your floor is your local government. So we should be actually celebrating that. I understand that the turnout was low, but it wasn't that low. 40% is still considered possible in Pakistan's history or Pakistan's electoral system. Political parties should be able to actually mobilize more votes, and that wasn't happening, unfortunately. Regarding what Faisal said earlier, I think there is one aspect that really wounds me very deeply regarding how our punditry works. I mean, on one side, we keep on actually, we have the habit of predicting so much, of focusing too much on ball-to-ball commentary in cricket like cricket at this moment, that we forget that there is a series and there is a match, right? We lose the context, and that has been happening. The particular thing that I really got angry with was this insinuation that people of a province or voter of a constituency doesn't decide, but the forces that be, if they are alienated, something happens. I don't think so. This is, with due respect, I don't want to use the kind of words that keep on popping in my head, but that is poppycock, right? Now, let us talk about the factors which might have played into what was happening. Whenever a political party actually becomes powerful, influential, has a government at the center, more people want to join in, and then what happens is that because there are many electables, they play against each other, right? We have the tradition of politics in this country where family members, people from one family actually are lobbying against each other. So this time when you are talking about ticket distribution, I think that was a huge faux pas. And of course, it also included the context. Prime Minister did not say that he is going to micromanage anything. He said that the ticketing process is something that he'll have to take cognizance of.
He did say personally monitor whatever's going on.
Personally monitor, but he is the head of the party, is he not? If he is the head of the party, so he has the right to actually take a closer look. But I didn't see the word micromanaging anywhere at all. But when you are talking about opposition, yesterday when we were talking about JUIF and how hard right once again is victorious, I met or certain actually pundits actually called on me late night, and they were actually pointing out that this is not only JUIF's vote, it is basically PDM's vote. Right, so PMLN was supporting their candidature, other parties were supporting them as well. So it becomes a huge aspect that is neglected right now. So I think that there are many things that need to be seen. My concern is that the traditional secular parties are nowhere to be seen. ANP, how many seats did it get? People's Party, actually Peshawar's seat should have gone to either ANP or People's Party, but it ended up with JUIF. So I think all parties need to actually have a soul-searching session, and they should be taking care of these things. Regarding the power that is being wielded at this moment, I can tell you that there is no corrective mechanism when it comes to these local bodies, power, because this ground has been ceded and it is going to stay there till the next general elections, and these are very powerful posts. So they will play a huge role in the next election, but there is still half the story. Khyber Pakhtunkhwa is going to go into the second phase early next year. So that time perhaps PTI can recover some space.
Right, and Farrukh, you had a question for yourself? Is that done?
No, I'm done.
Okay. Athar, when we talk about the different reasons and the different ways that things can be better the next time around, I want to understand why all of this, which seems to be quite obvious and apparent, and things that could have been thought about, talked about, or done differently, is not done prior to something going wrong. Why is this talk of changing things, of looking deeply into these matters? Why hasn't this been done before, considering the local government elections were very deeply important, specifically with the PTI government?
Simple answer is incompetence on political level. The thing is that my Prime Minister did say that he will personally look into the tickets issue. Imagine a Prime Minister of a country personally taking interest in the tickets of councillors. Which is the if you I don't know if you can call it micromanaging or not, but this is something really worrying, to be honest. If a chief minister cannot look after the affairs of a province, if ministers or the local party leadership is not competent enough to look after the distribution of tickets at local level, this tells you a lot about the party. There is a sheer incompetence in the party. The thing is that after every elections, we hear slogans like this: "Oh, we will look into this," or "We were fighting against ourselves," or "There's infighting." Our candidates were fighting independent as well. But it's your mistakes, the same mistakes we've seen in Gujranwala, in Lahore, in Karachi. They had 14 MNAs from Karachi. After Faisal Wada left his seat, what happened? They came 6th or 7th in that seat. Their performance is absolute abysmal. There's no denying the fact they are performing very poorly. And the thing is that within 3 years, we've seen that they're losing every other seat, and there's infighting, and plus the tickets to their own relatives and nepotism within the party. Every single election in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, either it is reserve seats or female seats or local bodies elections, there's always relatives of MNAs, MPAs. Parvez Khattak Saab, his son was fighting election this time. His nephew was fighting from another party, contesting from another party. So there are serious issues within PTI. But the thing is that they will never admit to it. And that's where the problem lies. They keep saying the same thing again and again. They keep telling you and me that we are not wise enough, we are not intelligent enough to understand the situation.
Yeah.
And they keep saying that,
we do see statements coming from the PTI that, of course, they agree to whatever they need to be doing differently.
Right.
Yes, Farrukh.
And Sana, with due respect, I think that this is a party that is at least taking responsibility for its failure. Right. Otherwise, you could have very easily said that election commission actually indulged or was compromised and they played foul, right? That didn't happen. I think that I totally agree that there are problems at the provincial level, and there is a problem regarding, and let me also thank Athar for his time as well, but regarding the fact that provincial leadership has problem, I think at this moment also the name that was taken, Parvez Khattak Saab, is a bigger factor than the Chief Minister Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, right? And that's why perhaps we are seeing this congealing of the party. But at this moment, at least they are taking responsibility for their failure.
Which is huge.
Two, they are not doing something that actually is abhorrent, and that is actually depriving the people of a province of the agency, right? When I take responsibility and I vote, I can go any way. I can vote for anybody. But if you start saying that I'm not the one who is actually responsible, somebody else, some ghosts, some aliens are doing it, that is the most obnoxious thing to me.
Absolutely.
And I think that they didn't do it.
Right. And before we conclude this topic, Faisal, I also want to quickly go through the economic situation in the country as well, since, of course, this is also a reason that is being put forward specifically by the opposition parties as well. But we obviously saw the information minister coming out and clearing a lot of things with regards to how the country, in fact, is progressing. Would you care to shed some light on that?
Sana, that's what I wanted to highlight. I think the biggest challenge right now for the government is that they have the economic challenges in front of them. And I think Pakistan is not the only country that has economic challenges right now. Due to COVID, due to lack of exports, obviously all of the countries, they are having problems. And to me, I think government is doing whatever is best for the people right now, and in coming future, of course, they will be trying to cope more and more over it. And I think government needs to look into CPEC as well, the rapid performance or the rapid rapid CPEC. It can be a good factor for the government as well when it comes to economy.
Okay.
And obviously, government needs to work more into the economic.
Absolutely,
challenge.
but Farrukh, does the public at large actually understand that the government's doing its best, and this is an economic situation which is not at its worst?
Right, and that actually worries me because the narrative is set by the media, and what media does is basically not focus on these matters at all. They actually keep on going for the invective, for the bluster, right, and hyperbole. And there usually it is a debate on whose leak has come and who is going to actually trounce whom, right? That kind of media, abuse actually leads you to a fraying of the middle ground, and this is what is happening. For example, PMLN is an example that nobody points out. They keep on showing them as martyrs of democracy, but the way they keep empowering the right-wing elements, may it be TLP in Punjab, and this is the most underrated story of the year, that they keep on actually placating them and then also blame crying foul. And here, JUIF, they could have actually gone for their own candidates, they did not.
Right. Let's move on to the next topic. Now we have our guests who've joined us on Skype for the situation in Afghanistan with specific reference to Hamid Karzai's statements and his reference to Prime Minister Imran Khan's speech during the OIC session that was held earlier. Asif Durrani, who's a former ambassador, has joined us on Skype, and Mr. Shafiq Ahmed, who's a senior journalist, has also joined us on Skype. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being with us in the debate. We will be talking about the former president of Afghanistan, Hamid Karzai, statements with regards to Prime Minister Imran Khan talking about the situation in Afghanistan, the threat of ISK, and of course Pakistan's role in this entire situation. This is something that Hamid Karzai has spoken about with reference to being insulting, with reference to blaming Pakistan for the threats and problems that Afghanistan faces today, and then of course also pointing towards the fact that Pakistan or the Prime Minister should not be interfering in Afghanistan's internal matters. At a moment in time when the entire world is engaging with the Taliban regime and debating about how to proceed with the situation within Afghanistan, the people at the brink of humanitarian crisis, the country at the brink of an economic collapse, issues of legitimacy circling around in the entire international community trying to understand how to engage with the Taliban regime. How are these comments valid with reference to this being an internal matter when Prime Minister Imran Khan in fact did not even say anything which was insulting or offensive to the Taliban regime in Afghanistan? Mr. Asif Durrani.
Well, thank you very much. I think it has two aspects. One is that I'm sorry, this voice there's an echo in my voice. Can you?
Right, but sir, we can hear you properly. Please go on.
All right. So there are two aspects of Mr. Karzai's statement. One is that he felt embarrassed because he was the president. When the Prime Minister was talking about the period that when it happened, because during the past 2 decades that Karzai and Ashraf Ghani, they were ruling the country, it was only corruption, nepotism, and inefficiency that ruled that country. And secondly, of course, he misconstrued it because Prime Minister was referring to the chaotic situations which were there, and in that I think not only the Afghans but Americans were equally responsible. So therefore, Mr. Karzai, whatever he has said it, I think he also wanted to address the galleries and he wants to be relevant in this whole episode, yes.
With specific reference to the threat of ISK, this is something that the Taliban regime is still trying to have a control over or to face, and is a matter of concern to the people in Afghanistan, in Pakistan, and the world over. This is also something that has been pointed out by Karzai, saying that in fact it is the opposite, and pointing towards Pakistan's involvement in this regard, or Pakistan's soil being used against Afghanistan's territory. Mr. Shafiq, when we talk about Pakistan's role with reference to Afghanistan and peace in the country, it has played a major role even before the Taliban regime came into power. Despite the efforts that Pakistan seems to be making, we still see statements coming out, specifically from the rulers in Afghanistan, that whatever Pakistan has been doing is not enough. Is this sort of trust deficit that was there even before with the regime in Afghanistan still continue to poison the way that Pakistan is looked at by the world?
Oh, thank you very much for the invitation. In fact, Pakistan played a very, very major role to bring US and Taliban on the negotiation table. And the agreement signed in February last year, it was only because of Pakistan's efforts, which coordinated with the international community as well as with the US. So Pakistan's role is very, very important because Pakistan suffered a lot. Reason is very simple. The Afghanistan situation for the last over 1 decade, Pakistan have been targeted by the militants or those who got refuge in Afghanistan during the time of Hamid Karzai and Ashraf Ghani. They quite often used to carry out attacks against Pakistan. So it is in the betterment for not only for the people of Afghanistan, but also for Pakistan, because Pakistan suffered a lot. So Pakistan played a very major role for the peace in the region. And as for the Hamid Karzai statement, actually, one of the report quoted Hamid Karzai's statement regarding Daesh when he gave interview to Al Jazeera some 4 years back. So that was the reference. And I think he was feeling embarrassment, like why he has been quoted. But he said, like US played a role to have footing of Daesh or ISK in Afghanistan. So that may be one of the reasons like he was not feeling comfortable with such comment. But it is not only Hamid Karzai who said. A Russian deputy foreign minister during a visit in 2018 January, he said the same thing. So I think I mean it is in the benefit of.
Shafiq Sahab, you have been extensively reporting from within Afghanistan as well. Let me ask you a very straightforward question. Hamid Karzai's interviews are being published internationally, but at this moment within Afghanistan, how relevant is Hamid Karzai when it comes to public discourse there?
No, he is no more relevant. Of course, because I've been to Afghanistan, I spent time, I'm still talking to the Taliban leadership off and on to get their opinion. Hamid Karzai played a role which he failed basically for the peace between the previous government of Ashraf Ghani and the Taliban. Hamid Karzai, in fact, and Abdullah both failed to settle the issue amicably. Instead, Taliban were forced to enter Kabul because all the government functionaries, the president and other cabinet members, they fled the country. So I think he is no more relevant. He is just a former president, but he is the kind of person, he may be seeking an opportunity to have some position in the government. Maybe this may be his intention. Otherwise, Taliban
And Sana, with your permission, if you allow me to actually pose a question to the ambassador also. Ambassador Saab, one more statement actually came from Hamid Karzai, and that was a shocker, a whopper actually. He says that I invited Taliban to come into Kabul because there was law and order situation. But what would you say to this Afghan elite's attitude? If they are not in power, they want anyone to win. but the people in power. And somehow it seems now clear when Hamid Karzai actually goes to the media and says this, that he was actively undermining whatever government there was in Kabul.
Well, I think perhaps Taliban can confirm the veracity of his claims because I'm no one to say what he meant. But if he did say, and if I accept, what did he say? Then, and since he was already in touch with the Taliban, this is also not a secret. So it is a possibility that he might have done it. And perhaps being the early bird, perhaps would have also won the favors of the Taliban. Perhaps this was his thinking, and that is also a possibility. But at the same time, we should not forget that Mr. Hamid Karzai belongs to the Popozek tribe of Duranis, which is the largest tribe among the Duranis. He has got his tribal position as well, so we just cannot pull him out. He's very much there. Whether he is relevant or not in the present is a different thing. But you just not wish him away. That same case with Dr. Abdullah. And in any case, they are two international things. So if anything, Taliban want to do something nasty against them, that is not going to, favor them in any case. So they have got their nuisance value. And at the same time, I think it can also both. I mean, Abdullah and...
Right. And now, Ambassador Sahab, your voice seems to be saturating. Faisal, go ahead.
Yeah, from Brother Shafiq, I have a question. Brother Shafiq, you and I, we both know when CIA probed into the corruption of the previous regimes of Afghanistan, what the conclusion was that they said that every year from 320 to 350 million dollars of corruption was being made from Afghanistan, and the money was being docked into somewhere in the Western world. So, and the other, there's another report about it, that there were ghost schools, there were ghost students, there were ghost teachers, and a massive corruption was going on within the education system of the Afghanistan, which was being portrayed as the education system is getting better, whereas it was all ghost. The system was ghost. And then we had another say from the Americans when they said, oh, when we got into the details of the soldiers of obviously Afghan National Army, most of the soldiers, they did not exist. They were the ghost soldiers, and most of them, the ID cards which were used of the people were already dead, and the ID cards were used as they were the soldiers, and they were getting the money out of the pockets of the Americans. So while America was getting robbed by the previous regimes of Afghanistan, what wrong has our Prime Minister said to previous Karzai of Afghanistan? What do you think about it? I mean, is there something wrong that Prime Minister Imran Khan has said about him?
Of course not. It is open secret. Like when I talked to the spokesman for the Taliban, he said around 24,000 Afghan National Army and law enforcement agency personnel surrendered to Taliban, and they have no idea where the other people are gone. On record, there were 300,000 soldiers and policemen, but what the Taliban say, that only 24,000 people surrendered. So it means that it was a ghost and all things were fake. It's an open secret. Where the money has gone, there is calculation that how much money US and other allied forces spend in Afghanistan, and now they are asking because they are the democratic governments, and now people, the taxpayer of these governments, are asking their government where the money has gone. So what the Prime Minister of Imran Khan of Pakistan said, he is correct. Like whatever the situation was in the past, what I have seen, the US the US forces and foreign forces, they never spent even a single penny on the infrastructure development. There were just few factories in Kabul, but there was nothing. It was a war money, and everybody was earning and making money through the war. The war ended, the money is gone. So I think the Prime Minister of Pakistan was very much right and very much correct. And the former government officials, they feel embarrassed when people talk about the previous two governments or three governments' corruption. Like Hamid Karzai remained president for almost 13 years. And the same is the case with Ashraf Ghani before he fled the country. And as per Russian government official, along with money. When I was there, the Taliban claimed, and later it was verified, from the houses of Bismillah Mohammadi and also the former defense minister and Amrullah Saleh, who was the main focal person from Afghanistan, from the previous Afghanistan government. The Taliban recovered millions of dollars from their homes in Panjshir. So the corruption was very obvious. So if somebody called them or straightforwardly say that they were involved or indulged in corruption, it was nothing wrong. It is nothing wrong.
Right. Okay. Mr. Asif, is all of this as obvious to the international community as this is to us? And also with regards to Pakistan's role that it has played in Afghanistan in the past and continues to do now, are these statements that are coming from Hamid Karzai actually seed more doubt or can cause some sort of a negative impact on Pakistan's role or the Prime Minister's position on Afghanistan? Since it's already there, can this be, if nothing else, be used as an excuse to further that agenda?
Listen, being a diplomat, I would have advised Prime Minister that he should not discuss those issues. Rather, the Taliban government should have commented on those issues, whether those were corruptions perpetrated by the previous regimes. So this would be my advice. And this is something our officials should be careful in future as well. Being journalists, yes, you and me can discuss these issues. Let the CIGAR reports, they speak for themselves. Americans have an accountability system which let them, it should work and it will work. And then there are reports, and then I think Western journalists, they will be in fact, finding, chasing the trail of where the money has gone, or for that matter, those corrupt Afghan officials who have fled the country, their lifestyles would speak for themselves when they'll be exposed. So I think prudence demands that whatever positive role we have played in organizing the OIC's ministerial meeting, extraordinary ministerial meeting, we should focus on that. And then if there's something which is relating to happening inside Afghanistan, their political system, that I think the incumbent government in Afghanistan is, I think, more qualified to comment upon that. And they should come out with truth. And
all right, Farrukh, given the situation, yes, Farrukh, given the situation in Afghanistan at the moment and the kind of issues that are being discussed with the Taliban regime and what Afghanistan is facing, a lot of these lines seem to be blurred at the moment. Can we really demarcate what issues need to be discussed or can be discussed and what come under the umbrella of an internal matter and what can be talked about at a forum like the OIC, which was organized for this particular purpose in terms of the situation in Afghanistan?
Right, and that is a brilliant question, because earlier I was listening to the mention of CIA probing various deals as well. I think Ambassador is absolutely on money when he is talking about CIGAR reports. I think CIGAR reports and then Washington Post's Afghanistan papers actually reveal a lot. And I think America is cognizant of where their money went, and they're very good at actually tracking down their money and getting it back. So that I don't have any doubt about. Regarding what statements were given about corruption by the Prime Minister, I think I see the point that the ambassador is making. But regarding overall concern that I have about Hamid Karzai, and I honestly, I don't say it lightly, is that the only reason the entire world seems to be talking about Afghanistan's internal matters is because Afghan elite has this problem that they start fighting among each other, that they take it to the breaking point, and somebody starts actually calling for the enemy to walk in or some foreign power to walk in. That's why you had the Soviet invasion, that's why you had the US invasion, that's why you had the Taliban takeover as well. Had these guys not been fighting among themselves, perhaps you could have sustained whatever gains were made in 20 years, regardless of how corrupt that system was. But at this moment, I think because Afghanistan's situation is such that it doesn't have an official government which is recognized by anybody, in that situation what happens is that you basically start talking about the grassroots realities. So you will be talking about corruption, you will be talking about funds, you will be talking about poverty alleviation. There is no limit to what you are going to talk about, till the time there is a legitimate government and Afghanistan is treated as a state. I believe that Afghanistan is a sovereign country and I respect its right. I've always respected its right to make decisions for itself rather than anybody else doing it. But at this moment, the way Afghan elite or former elite actually keeps on undermining the middle ground is obnoxious, and this should worry everybody.
Right, and Faisal, when we see statements coming in from the Afghan foreign minister contradictory to what Karzai has been saying and clarifying that there was nothing insulting in the prime minister's speech, does this also point towards the fact that maybe nobody in Afghanistan is actually also having the same opinion as Karzai, or do you think that the statements that Hamid Karzai has given echo a certain sentiment that still exists in Afghanistan?
I think people like Hamid Karzai, people like the previous president Ghani, they don't have any space within Afghanistan right now, because if they ever had one, then they were the ones who actually made ANA stand, and they were the ones who were claiming that ANA would defend the country, whereas what we saw, the claims were that 300,000 soldiers would be enough, forces would be enough to defend. But when the time came, 80,000, as the Americans had came up with the figure, 80,000 of Taliban, they were so easily getting into city from city, village from village. They conquered whole Afghanistan, and people actually cheered for them in so many places. Places like Kunduz, places like Kandahar, places like so many rural places. They were showered with the flowers when they were entering in. So if they ever had place in Afghanistan, then people wouldn't have done that.
Okay.
But what we saw was it was opposite. So people knew what they were up to.
Okay,
that's why they liked them.
One liner.
Yes, quickly,
Just the report that I just quoted is AP's report, where Hamid Karzai actually gave interview to AP and said that he invited the Taliban within Kabul while they were standing outside. So this is a statement that has been reported.
Almost out of time, so let us just take quick comments from our respected guests. Mr. Shafiq, why don't you go first?
Quick comment.
Mr. Shafiq,
Ahmed.
can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Yes.
The final
Yeah, I can
comments.
hear you.
I think he's zoned out or something, right? Please go ahead, sir. Okay.
Yeah. I couldn't hear the question actually. Please, can you
Your
repeat?
conclusion, sir.
Your conclusion, what should happen in Afghanistan
conclusion.
right now? Humanitarian crisis.
And one liner.
I think the US should unfreeze the fund. That will be enough for the Taliban government to start functioning, to help the people who are in desperate need of humanitarian assistance, because there is a harsh winter in Afghanistan.
Absolutely.
Afghanistan is extremely cold place. So the US government, I think, should release or unfreeze the central bank reserve, which is exactly $9.4 billion.
Right, Mr. Asif.
Well, my 2 cents would be that Taliban should come out clean on inclusiveness and human rights. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Absolutely, but of course, all of these are big issues, and for this, a lot of the discussions have been held before in the past. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Shafiq Ahmed and Mr. Asif Durrani, for joining us. These, of course, are major concerns, and a lot needs to be done both from the Taliban regime side and, of course, the international community. At the end of the day, we need the world to recognize that Pakistan is and has always been making efforts for peace and stability in Afghanistan, and it has been doing nothing else. And all of the statements that have been coming from Pakistan and from Prime Minister Imran Khan have been to achieve this particular goal, which is peace in Afghanistan. And this is what the world must remember, if nothing else. Thank you very much for joining us on The Debate.